My first Denon product, my God, I don't remember what my first Denon product was. It could have been a receiver, it could have been a CD player. It probably was a CD player, I think.
What decade?
It was the 80s, or it could have been earlier. I don't remember, but I know that I had a Denon CD. It was the first CD player that I ever had, and it was difficult for me to buy a CD player. But this one actually sounded pretty good, I have to say. Not as good as my records, but it sounded pretty good.
And through the years, what's the most beloved Denon product that you've reviewed or you own?
Well, I would say a receiver, probably. I mean, the early receivers with all the doodads and the functionality that actually sounded good, that was a good thing. You know, a lot of the receivers have all the doodads and the functionality, but they don't sound that good. And this actually sounded good.
The Denon receiver.
Yes. Don't ask me model numbers because, you know, these products have these numbers, CKD5L1110, and it's not like saying, you know, the Seagull or the, you know, whatever it is. It's difficult to remember the numbers. I'm not good with numbers.
And tell us a little bit about your passion about vinyl, and maybe something about a Denon turntable.
Well, I think I owned a Denon motor. That much I can tell you. Denon made a fantastic AC direct drive motor. And I had that in a Denon turntable that I put a different arm on. That was in the 70s. Remember the 70s?
I remember.
I remember it sort of the 70s.
I was a solid gold dancer in the 70s.
Really?
I was.
Well, I did have a Denon AC motor. It was a really good motor, too. That was my first Denon product,
And
I
what's
think.
your favorite vinyl record to listen on your Denon turntable?
In those days, it was probably the Clash, London Calling. I'd gotten the British pressing, and I had the American pressing, which was okay, I thought, and the British one was so much better. It was amazing. That I remember specifically.
And now, do you still listen to vinyl?
That's mostly what there's so much new vinyl out now. You know, I spent the last 20 years trying to save vinyl, and I'm not the only one, but a lot of people did save vinyl. And so now there's so much new vinyl that I don't have to listen to CDs anymore if I don't want to. But I listen to Blu-rays. There's now Blu-rays that sound really, really good. We're finally getting, 20 years later or 25 years later, to high-resolution digital that really starts to sound analog-like. Is it as good as records? I'm not going to say. But it really sounds good, so I'm happy. We have the best of both worlds. If you want vinyl, you got vinyl. And Denon still got their turntables. They were smart. They never went out of the turntable business, right? And they never went out of the cartridge business. And the Denon cartridges are very, very well regarded, and they have been through the years. I have a Denon record, actually, that's got the whole cartridge lineup on the cover. Have you ever seen that record?
What record?
It's a Denon record.
Oh, from
the Denon record days. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
So, yeah, so I've been owning and reviewing Denon products for many, many years now. CD players, receivers. Did I do a Blu-ray player? No, I want to be honest about this. I didn't do a Blu-ray player, but I did receivers, CD players, amplifiers, everything.
What's going on vinyl right now?
Well, you know, sound has gotten so degraded over the past 20 years. Most young people have never heard good audio. Never. They've heard MP3s and that's it. So when you sit a kid down in front of a decent stereo and play them a record, for them, it's like hearing high-definition television for the first time. And they go, oh my God, I've never heard anything like that in my life. Why have I not heard that? And the reason is they've heard MP3s for the past 20 years. So it's very easy to get a kid involved in this because they've been so degraded for 20 years. So kids are buying turntables now, and one kid will buy a turntable, and the friends come over and they see this cool thing, and they go, oh, play me something, and they hear it and they go, wow, I gotta get that. And so it's spreading virally, which is how MP3s first spread. It was one kid telling another. It wasn't like a big corporate thing. It was like, hey, you know, you can steal your music online. Let me show you how to do that. Now it's, you mean I buy a record? I go to a used record store, I can buy a record for $1 a piece and play it on this turntable and it sounds that good? Well, I'm going to get one of those. And it's happening because I talk to kids all the time. I mean, young people in their 20s and younger. Kids are going to college and saying, Dad, I want to bring a turntable to college. It's like, you do? Where'd you hear about that? I've got a turntable. Let's bring it out and play some music. And then the father gets back into it. So it's definitely happening now. It's amazing how much vinyl there is, too.
That's great.
It was back in the mid-'80s. Denon was in the car audio market. It was one of the first companies to come out with pull-out head units in the United States. And it was one of the first companies to come out with some aftermarket electronics that integrated with factory head units.
And what car were you driving at the time?
I think it was a 1981 Mazda 626. It was very cheap.
When I was 13 years old, the late Saul Mendelson, the owner of Babler Radio in Toronto, actually gave me a Denon integrated as a bar mitzvah gift. and I actually had that for almost 5 or 6 years. Actually lasted me into college. Then after college, I bought my first Denon AV surround sound receiver. I think it was the 2803. That's how long ago it was. And actually, I currently use a 4810 CI in my home theater system. So I've been a Denon fan and customer literally since I was 13 years old.
And what's about the brand that you find that's special?
I think in terms of, especially Japanese electronics, it's always had the most high-end sound. It was the first component I really heard when I was a teenager. It hooked me for life. I've owned a lot of really high-end systems in my day, but I guess it's interesting that after all these years having owned many different brands, the brand that I went back to for like a 5-figure surround sound system was a Denon surround sound receiver. I like the way they're made, their tanks. I've never had a Denon product blow up on me, either as a customer or a reviewer. It's just great equipment. It has a great legacy. I mean, for a company to last 100 years in consumer electronics is so rare. I mean, I can't think of a single other consumer electronic company that's been around this long. And it's just amazing. Over the years, the products have just gotten better and better, and the prices have come down. So I think that makes Denon a very unique company.
That's great. Do you have any, do you listen to vinyl?
I actually have 3 turntables, and Michael Fremer over there would enjoy hearing this. But I did have a Denon turntable back in college that I kind of stole from the college radio station. But I won't mention what college I went to in the Mid-Atlantic states. But actually, I've owned many Denon cartridges over the years. I actually still have a 103 somewhere in my system. Denon has always, actually, it's also unique as a Japanese company. Always made really good vinyl products. I think the fact that the 103 is still sold and made after all these years, even with, I guess, the decline in vinyl, says a lot about the cartridge, especially if you peruse all the audio-video chat boards on the web. It's probably the most famous cartridge in the world, and I think that says a lot about the product.
That's great.
My parents have a Denon system in their home in New Hampshire. My brother-in-law actually just bought a Denon surround sound receiver on my advice. My kids, who are 4 and 8, have actually figured out how to use the very complicated remotes that come with Denon surround sound receivers. So I mean, the products are very user-friendly, and I think over the years that's what's kind of drawn me back to them. I'm not embarrassed to admit that I dumped a very expensive Martin Logan surround sound system for a Spender Denon system. It's just a great product. I mean, a lot of companies make good products, but Denon is kind of synonymous with quality. And I think that as a lot of other companies have got into the business, especially with the, I guess, the birth of home theater, Denon has kind of like reached up here to sort of set it like a new plateau for products. And I think I've never heard a surround sound receiver better than anything Denon makes. There's nothing out there that even touches it.
Do you find yourself listening to still a lot of music on vinyl, or are you more listening to MP3s? You know,
there's not an MP3 in my system anywhere. I would even let my kids put it on their iPods. I still listen to a lot of vinyl, but my interests have kind of swayed in the last 4 or 5 years more towards film. I watch a ridiculous number of movies a week, and the Denon surround sound receiver just kind of has really made that a great experience. I have like the full-blown JVC Stewart setup, and the Denon surround receiver is not at a company in such a system. It's really sort of like a Mercedes-Benz level of audio product, and I think the company should be very proud of itself.
And what's your go-to movie?
Oh, Stalag 17. Stalag 17.
We're gonna be trying out this catchphrase. I just want to see how it works. It's called "How do you get your Denon?" How do you get your Denon? Okay?
It's okay.
All right. So, Ian, how do you get your Denon?
By watching probably.
Say it.
Oh, I get my Denon by watching probably 20 hours a week worth of movies through my Denon 4810 CI surround sound receiver.